So thank all of you guys, because I know what it's like after a full day of work to sit down to a webinar. So fresh in the morning is easy, but after a long day of patients, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. So appreciate all of you that are on here, and I'm pretty informal, but when I lecture in a room, I love interaction. I love people, just jumping in. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult on Zoom, so rest assured we will leave time at the end for Q&A. I can stay on as long as possible, and of course, I'll give you guys all my email address, cell phone number, whatever you need if you have any questions at any point. So without further ado, just a little bit about myself. Some of you may know me. I used to travel around a lot lecturing back in the day for 3M. I did a tremendous amount of incognito. For those of you that loved lingual orthodontics, for those of you that hate it, I apologize, but we're still using it in our practice until they just recently sunsetted it. But always been a fan of cutting edge innovation, of really giving my patients a full offering, understanding what the patient's wants and needs are, and kind of catering to it, which is definitely a lot of how my mindset came to really create Grin many, many years ago. As Andrew mentioned, I'm from the New York area, but a little bit more upstate. My practices, I've had a practice in New York City. I sold in 2019 as we were ramping up with Grin. I have two practices, one in New York, one in New Jersey, kind of think of them as suburbs of New York City. And my New Jersey practice was more your traditional practice, your suburb practice, probably about starting out, 70-30 adolescents and children versus adults. I then, as I went into lingual, I geared a little bit more, heavily towards adults than your average practice. And then you've got your typical split between aligners and brackets and wires. Again, I would say 60-40 or 70-30. We still do a bunch of lingual because we've got patients coming from all over to us for that. And that's a very, very nice niche thing. Over the course of the years, we've had a lot of changes in orthodontics. Now, I got out of my residency back in 2003. And so I've been doing this over 20 years, and I can see some of that shift and some of that change. And a lot of that has kind of really pushed my mind towards what we've built out with Grin, in understanding how the consumer, how our patients were changing, their wants and their needs, and what we needed to do to kind of answer that call and give them not just the appliance system that they're looking for, but also the journey that they're looking for. So a lot of what you see here is going to be really about that patient journey. And then, of course, how do we scale our practices so that with all of the new innovation out there, both in the world of orthodontics and in other worlds on the direct-to-consumer side, et cetera, how we can scale and we can still be profitable and, of course, and successful. Now, things are a little bit different in Australia, New Zealand, but in the United States, things are not doing so well right now. There's been a tremendous amount of turmoil, a tremendous amount of up and down. A lot of people, love him or hate him, thought that as the president was incoming, things are going to change on the economic side, and then tariffs hit, and so things are in a major, major flux. But to be honest, if I look at, our little bubble in the world of dentistry and orthodontics, where it's really been hitting us is really on the staffing side, right? It is impossible to find good people these days. And when you find people, it's a completely different generation from a perspective of work ethic, from a perspective of how long they stay loyal to a position and to a job. Now, that impacts us tremendously because we put in so much time, effort, and energy into training individuals, right? And even if we get dental assistants that are coming from other practices and have dental experience, they're learning how to do things your way and the way your practice and patients have been used to you doing them. You invest 6 months to train them up, and then they're gone. And so a lot of the way we think about things is, everybody talks about every position in your practice should be replaceable. The reality is sometimes it's difficult, but the reality is we need to figure out how to scale our practices without taxing us so much on the staffing side. And again, this is something that you're going to see as a common theme here. And so I see this as, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here that we have, especially with what's happening in AI. And I don't want to just throw AI out there like a buzzword, but, for the last 3-4 years, that's all we've been hearing about is AI, AI, AI. from my perspective, it's got to be impactful, right? It's not just about being a buzzword. It's not just about saying, hey, we're going to let AI do this and it's going to be the do-all, end-all, and it's going to be amazing. We want to make sure that we're using AI responsibly. And so, again, you're going to see a lot of that kind of theme as well. Now, when I got together with my co-founders and we started thinking around what Grin will look like, everybody in our practices as well, we come up with mission statements, right? What are we? If somebody stopped you in an elevator, what is Grin, right? And so we came up with this, and this was back in 2018, actually, and we said Grin applies AI responsibly, right? Because this was in the age of direct-to-consumer, different aligner companies, et cetera. So responsibility was key, especially when we're talking about healthcare. So Grin applies AI to responsibly transform oral care. You notice it's not just about orthodontics, revolutionizing dental diagnostics, engagement, and care delivery. Now, something interesting that I did the other day is we all have ChatGPT on our phone now. That's, my go-to. I mean, I use Grok and Gemini and other things, but I don't search in Google anymore, right? I actually send out an AI agent to find what I'm looking for, right? If I'm shopping for a piece of furniture, I give my AI all of the information of what I'm looking for, even dimensions, even price points, even, what design style, and boom, it goes out and gets me the top 10 choices. And so I actually popped into ChatGPT, talk to me, tell me a quick little sentence on what AI is doing for dentistry today. And actually, so look at, this was our mission statement back in 2018, and this is what ChatGPT gave me back. AI is transforming various aspects of dentistry by enhancing diagnostics, treatment planning, and administrative tasks. Very similar to our thought process and what we built out back in 2018. So what is Grin? Now, it's interesting because we hit the market a while ago, right? To Australia, New Zealand, we are new. And we're now basically second or even third to market from that perspective. But we have been building in the background and we've been selling in the background in the United States, Canada, and some other areas. And it's interesting, when we hit these markets, what is currently on the market is dental monitoring, is Align virtual care, etc. These are all remote monitoring systems. And so a lot of people right away look at Grin as a remote monitoring system. And the first thing I want to kind of dispel is we absolutely do remote monitoring, and we do it better than everybody else, but that is just one component to a much, much larger overall ecosystem, right? So all of us have in our practice a practice management software, a PMS, right? I use TOPS, many of you use Dolphin or other things. The way I look at Grin is not as a PMS practice management system, but as a PMS patient management system, right? Think of your TOPS and your Dolphin, your practice management system as the paperwork that's happening in the background. But the part that engages me as a doctor to my patients, the part that engages my patient and myself and my team clinically, that's my patient management system. And that's exactly what we've built out Grin to be. So as you start seeing some of the things that we talk about today, you're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, this is a lot more than just remote monitoring. Now, one of the things, like the core principles that we've set up within the system, though, is, I'm going to start with this last one, Dr. Back. It's not a matter of giving myself a pat on the shoulder or anything, but rather the reason that I take pride in the fact that Grin is Dr. Back is because that's how it was created from the foundation up, meaning absolutely, I have engineers like all the other companies have engineers, but this was created with my intimate knowledge of the patient life cycle, of the practice life cycle, of my team members. And so I layered this in not to be a disruptor. Back in the early days of tech and the tech boom, right? And Silicon Valley and everything, everybody loved using the term, oh, we're a disruptor. In healthcare, in orthodontics, in our practices, disruption is bad, right? We want innovation. We want efficiencies. We want amazing different automations and other things that we can build out. We want a better patient experience. We want, obviously, to make more money with doing less. But we don't want our practices disrupted. So when I talk about Dr. Back, it's As you start seeing how we layer Grin in, you'll notice that it's going to be a little bit different than what others do, because I understand where are the points that we can seamlessly and efficiently layer Grin in without disrupting my typical flow of my practice. The other thing is personalization. So if any of you have ever heard me lecture, even in the world of lingual, etc., what I was always about is I want treatment to be personalized for my patients. And that's what's actually allowed our practices to have a tremendous amount of success. So back then, it was personalizing the way they wanted to be treated, basically the appliance system that we used. Today, it goes beyond that. Every patient that I have in my chairs want to interact with the world around them from their mobile device, right? Like my kids only want to order pizza on a mobile device, even if they have a favorite pizza place locally in town, but they would have to pick up the phone to order from that place. They're not. They're going through the mobile device to DoorDash to the pizza store a block down that is not their favorite, just because they don't want to interact with a human being, right? So these are the kind of things that we have to take into account as our patient population is changing. How do we change, but again, not disruptive, but rather layered in an easy and efficient way so that we can give our patients what they're looking for? Scalability is key as well, right? We need to be able to scale. I talked a little bit about staffing, right? We want to be able to scale our practice, but untethered to the amount of team members we have. And that's exactly one very, very important thing that Grin allows for. Then, of course, it's got to be easy, right? When we talk about, again, layering it into the practice, if it is difficult to do, if I need a 2-day training in order to learn how to do something, my team is never doing it. Even if I come back from an AAO and I'm all excited, my team is just groaning and moaning, oh, you want us to do something new? And so we'll also talk about how easy this is to layer on into your practice, even from a team member perspective as well. So what is a Grin ecosystem? So it's made up of 3 main components, really. So number 1, right out of the gate, is what we call the Grin Scope. So this is a very, very simple yet thoughtful piece of engineering, which is something that my goal was always, it can't be so expensive. It can't be $100 a pop. It's got to be something that is relatively, not costly, so that it's a very simple method for us to connect with our patients. It's made up of a Grin app, and this is on the patient side, and then a Grin platform, obviously on the doctor side. This is a typical, what we call Grin scan. And let me pause this right here for a second, okay? So number 1, you're noticing right out of the gate, this is video. From the very moment that we started Grin, I'm always one to try to understand function. It's not just about statically looking at an occlusal photograph and that's about it. I want to see, is my patient class 1, 2, or 3? How are they biting? Is there a shift or is there not a shift? So right out of the gate, where Grin did things differently than our competitors is we went at this from a video perspective. Now, we'll give you the still photos. Our AI will pull out the photos that you need, that you want to look at as a composite. It'll even create the composite for you. But everything in Grin, number 1, is based off of video. You'll notice how, and I hope over Zoom this comes out okay, because on my screen it is so crystal clear, so sharp. I can see down to literally the consistency of the saliva bubbles here, right? The coloration is ideal. So we've got, this isn't just using your phone's camera. This is Grin basically hacking into the phone's camera, overtaking the software and making sure that it's as optimal as possible. And so Grin is taking this video of your patient's mouths, and this is a 34-second video in total. So the entire Grin scan, 34 seconds, that is it. Now, once we have that information, this is where we can start layering on AI and layering on diagnostics and layering on some really, really cool technology. So for example, in this patient's mouth, we layer on that AI, and right away you're going to see highlighted exactly where there's plaque, tartar, gum inflammation, and gum recession. And you'll see a little bit later, we obviously do a lot more diagnostics, but that's what's going on in this patient's mouth. But let me continue showing you this Grin scan, as we call it. So again, 34 seconds. This is an app that's talking the patient through doing it, or this could be your team doing it chairside. Now, let's pause that over here now. Also, look at how great this occlusal shot is. If I wanted to see this kind of view into my patient's mouth, even if the patient was in the chair, I'm turning them on their head, right? Or for my general dentist colleagues, right? You're turning the patient on the head, you're shining a million lights into their mouth, you have loops on, now you're looking at the occlusal of, this upper left molar, and you're not seeing the big picture. This shows you everything that you need to see. And that was really our goal. I said to the engineering team, I want to see into the patient's mouth. First, I said, as well as if they were in my chair. And then when I saw the views that we were getting, I'm like, you know what? I want to see even better than if they were in my chair. Now, some of the other just kind of like teasers of things we have coming out on top of this is actually not just some of the diagnostics I showed you before, but even cavity detection. And we've got some technology coming out that is even beyond visual decay, but even invisible decay. But that's for, just a little bit in the future. Now, what have we been up to up until this point? So just to understand, like I said, we are not just brand new to the market. We've been doing this in the United States for a while. These numbers are actually even a couple of months old from when we first put this lecture together. At this point, we've got close to 2 million patient scans. We've got close to 3 million what we call care exchanges. We have about 650, 700,000 patients globally. And we always measure our metrics. We've got 96% CSAT, which is really, really great. And we've got lots of other, obviously, bells and whistles and good things going on, along with a lot of patents on top of everything. So we already are seeing some of the impact in what we've been doing in the world of orthodontics, right? And this is on average. Now, we have a tremendous amount of case studies. We've got a tremendous amount of data, but on average, in a typical practice, and a little bit later, I'll take you through a typical practice based on a U.S. practice, right? I know you guys sometimes can scale your practices even larger than in the United States. So this could actually even be more multiplied for you guys. But essentially 1,800 fewer in-person appointments on average, 40 clinical days freed. And of course, this is based on you'll see later, this is based on a 300 start a year practice. So what you guys would consider a relatively small practice, but average, right? Almost about $250K in chair time and clinical labor saved, and then obviously on-time finishes and lots of other things. You'll also see here, if you're looking at this slide, that remote monitoring, what you can see here as Grin Virtual Care, is just one component. Virtual consultations is a huge component. I have grown my own practices based on these virtual consultations tremendously. We have expanded the geography around every practice because we do these virtual consults and then virtual monitoring. We now can give patients the ability to travel from far and only come see us 2-3 times over the course of their entire treatment, depending on what their treatment is. Obviously, other things within the platform like education, hygiene, compliance tools, all of those other things. We've got something even from the moment your patient comes in to see your treatment coordinator called the Grin Records app. This is how we onboard patients into the practice in a more meaningful way and be connected with them from the moment they touch our practice. And then, of course, we've got, not for the use of a buzzword, but AI. Now, our AI, if you start thinking about healthcare and what healthcare is doing with AI, they're not working with AI artificial intelligence. They're working with AI augmented intelligence. So what is the difference between augmented and artificial? Very simple. This is still healthcare. We do not want a patient getting AI that is hallucinating, right? Hallucinating is a nice way of saying lying or giving the patient something false. So it's one thing when you're typing in a query and it gives you wrong information. It's not the end of the world depending on what you're asking AI. But if a patient is getting information, you absolutely cannot afford for that patient to get the wrong information. And so if you look across healthcare, there are humans layered in to the AI patient interface, and therefore it's actually being labeled augmented intelligence, and that's exactly what Grin uses. We call it Copilot, and you're going to see it a little bit more in depth later. This is AI first, then a human, then to your patient, right? But this way, your patient is, rest assured, getting all of the right information, and our humans are doing this for your practice so that your practice doesn't have all of the homework. Again, more about that later. Now, what about dentistry? So, I mentioned before that when you looked at our mission statement, it wasn't just purely in orthodontics. We are doing a lot of very cool things in the world of general dentistry. Now, this is impactful for orthodontics because if a general dental office is leveraging Grin, they can now be connected to the orthodontic practice immediately and virtually, which now makes everybody happy, including the patient, right? You don't have to worry about waiting for that patient to make an appointment and worrying that referral actually, what we call, leaks and never comes to fruition, because now everybody is absolutely connected. So in a general dental office, we're seeing a much higher patient acceptance rate for treatment. In other words, conversion, because in a general dental office, a dentist or a hygienist or a dental assistant is taking a 34-second Grin scan and immediately then seeing everything into their mouth on the screen in front of them in an impactful way. And then layering on AI on top of that, not on top of an x-ray, but on top of that video that you just saw, which every patient understands when they're looking at a video of their own mouth, right? We also obviously do a lot of different things on the realm of efficiency and reducing admin burden and other things. So lots of different things that we'll talk about. You see a little bit of them here. Today we're going to focus a lot more on the orthodontic side, but some unbelievable tools in the world of general dentistry that will also help the orthodontic side. So what does a patient journey look like? You'll notice I'm talking about a patient journey because, again, Grin is not just monitoring, right? This is about holding the patient's hands as a virtual concierge, essentially, from the moment they touch your practice all the way through treatment. And so from the moment they connect with your practice, and you're going to see soon that means whether they connect virtually or in person, through the consultation, what we call records app and TC tools, to capturing that conversion, onboarding the patient, monitoring the patient through treatment, absolutely an important component of this, engaging with the patient and their family throughout, and then even with retention. You know, we give up patients and retention and say bye-bye. Why? There is a world where that patient can afford us long-term or lifetime value, LTV. So why not keep that patient engaged on a platform, and as that patient ages, whatever they need, they're coming back to you. So just some things to think about in the world of orthodontics. In the world of dentistry, I kind of mentioned it a little bit. This starts generally with either a virtual consult and capture or an in-person chairside scan. We've got AI charting, we've got AI diagnostics, ways to refer and collaborate with specialties and other things, and then, of course, patient education and presentation. And like I said, we've got a tremendous amount of ROI and case studies where we're seeing unbelievable increases in revenue per visit. I'm actually going to show you a little bit of that in a little while. So as I mentioned, we as Grin will essentially hold that patient's hands from the moment when they first touch your practice, right? Remember I said that statement. So what do I mean by that? And why did I say whether it's in person or virtually? Well, that's because over here, and you'll see a video on it soon, this is my TC using Grin to obtain records when the patient came in for a traditional in-person consult. Here you see that on our website, I've got two buttons: book a consultation in person, book a virtual consultation, and they're equal. And we get many patients actually clicking that virtual consult. And when they do, Grin will actually drop ship the patient a scope. And so the patient is sitting at home and they're actually getting a scope in the mail, opening up that scope, taking a scan. Later on that night, I get pinged over my app that I have a scan. I do a virtual asynchronous consult. That video gets sent to the patient. And now my TC is connected to that patient. Patient never even came into my office yet, and we're closing them virtually. Then we've also got a way to connect with a patient from the general dentist chair. Okay, so GP referrals, that's another very, very big one. I'm going to show you guys one slide on that. We call it rapid referral. And so imagine a world that some general dentist that the orthodontist is close with, or you're within the same organization, is obtaining the Grin scan in the chair. So patients in for a cleaning, we're taking a Grin scan so that we can show the patient what's going on in their mouth, convert them from a perspective of aesthetic treatment, other treatment options. And hey, you know what? Have you ever thought about taking care of that lower incisor crowding that you're now staring at in a video that in a likes of which you've never seen before? Oh, you are interested? Great. Click a button within Grin, and immediately the orthodontist, who may not be working that day, may be off-site, maybe in a different practice, is now connected with that patient. And in a couple of hours, by the time the patient comes home or later on that night, the orthodontist already has an asynchronous consult in that patient's inbox on the platform. All over the platform, all with the click of one button. So some really, really very powerful tools that we've built into this. So I'm not going to show you the whole video here, but this is actually my practice. You'll notice that I don't have a clinical chair in my consultation room. We treat a lot of adults, but we treat a lot of kids. Actually, it's not just kids that are afraid of the dentist. Adults are afraid too. So the knee-to-knee consult is how I do things. Because I have my TC, as you're seeing here, leveraging Grin, I'm going to show you, I'm going to fast forward this. There you go. So she's using Grin to take that scan. I get to see into the patient's mouth clinically. Right? I can still put on gloves and do a quick knee-to-knee view into the mouth. Some cases I have to, some cases I don't. So why have the clinical chair there that's just going to make them nervous? And so we do this need-a-knee consult, but again, no big DSLRs, no big mirrors that have to get fogged, not fogged, run them underwater, not, etc., cheek retractors, etc. This is the Grin scan right here, and this is my TC taking that Grin scan, getting the full 34-second video. Boom, that's it, it's all done. And immediately this gets sent to the portal. Now, in the portal, I like presenting actually the video, but it'll also immediately pull out the 5 photos that we normally take intraorally and the 3 extraoral photos. You saw them taking it within the app, and create the composite for you. And with the click of one button, it goes into your practice management software too. But what you'll really see here, which is powerful, let's look at this second video. So I'm sitting behind this desk now. I have a flat screen here that the patient and mom are looking at. I'm working on this computer. So this computer is reflected to this screen. On this computer, you notice this, I'm gonna kind of pause it right there for a second. If you notice this screen here, this is what we call Grin, what we call Scan Reviewer. This is how I do these virtual consults. I'm doing this in the chair. So I'm in this little bubble right here. This is the patient's scan. And as soon as I click Scan Review, the camera opens up and is recording me. So I am doing this consult for mom and patient, but the camera's recording me. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because oftentimes, if we're going to have a patient not close same day, 95% of the time it's because mom says, I got to go home and I got to speak to dad, right? And then what happens? All of the work that we did, all of the training that my TC had in how to present and how I had in how to present is wasted because dad's going to say, so what happened at the orthodontist? And mom's going to be like, $7,000, or in your cases, $9,000, whatever, right? Not really go through the full presentation, and dad is only looking at this as a cost to him instead of a benefit, instead of a value to fixing his beautiful princess's teeth, et cetera, et cetera. And so now dad is actually seeing me, and this is asynchronous. So if dad has the time, dad can jump on right here, or excuse me, as soon as I'm done with this, so let me kind of fast forward this. I do the full consult, right? I essentially hit send. And then if you'll see in this video over here, I come around, this is the patient's app. Patient clicks on the app and download, boom, it's right here. And this is the video that I just gave. And so mom and patient go home to dad, say, yeah, we need dad to make a decision. Okay, cool. Now dad has a video in the app of me giving the full presentation. I'll tell you one better. I leave this chair now. My TC sits down, goes over finances, but does exactly the same thing. Clicks scan, share, and Grin, shares the screen, does the finances, getting recorded, and that becomes a second video in Grin. So now my training in how to present the case, dad's seeing that. My TC's training in how to present the finances, dad is seeing that. It's not just mom saying it's going to be 7K. So now we're essentially virtually bringing dad into the consultation room. Now, again, this is just one tiny little functionality, but the reason I present it with such passion is because this has increased our conversions by 13%, right? We have gone from an 80% conversion rate to a 93% conversion rate just based on virtually bringing dad into the chair, which has been unbelievable. So again, one of the tools that nobody's thinking of, they look at Grin, they're like, remote monitoring. A lot more than remote monitoring here. So now going through this patient journey, patient was at the TC, patient, did the full, we call that records app. Let's say now over the platform, they close. Now we've got to plan the case. So Grin also is working with a couple of different partners so that we just took digital records. Let's get those digital records immediately to where we need them to. So we've got a lot of tools that are built in and then integrated so that as you're doing your planning, it's all there. So for example, as one, we've got one that is going to be announced soon with Solventum. So if you guys are using Solventum digital braces or aligners, clarity aligners, then immediately all of that data from Grin pops right into there. So we don't need our team member sitting there uploading photos, filling out patient data, etc. It all goes in from one to the other. And of course, we can work with any third party. So if you guys are using somebody else, let them know, let us know, and we can easily work on some integrations. And so as you're filling out these prescriptions, etc., the data is already there. It's right there front and center. You're not just seeing the photos. You can also see the video. So class 1, 2, 3, you don't have to worry that you're missing the bite or you're forgetting where the bite is up to, etc. So patient now, you plan the case. Patient now is at bonding day. And bonding day could be braces. Bonding day could be attachments, whatever that may be. Now, when it comes to the seamless flow of your practice, it's interesting that when you think about a lot of these kind of solutions, these solutions or the companies that are providing these solutions are talking about onboarding the patient on bonding day. Well, bonding day is my most busy day, right? I generally, for us, it's an hour in the chair, not a lot of doctor time because we do indirect bonding or digital bonding, and then we do obviously indirect or digital attachment placement. But still, the patient's there for a while. And so what we do instead is, number one, this patient was already onboarded onto the platform in the TC chair, which I showed you, because my TC appointment is an hour, and honestly, I've got more time at that appointment for my TC to onboard the patient than I do today. So number one, patients are ready on the platform. But we do want to show the patient how to take a self-scan because they had a scan taken, but it was by the TC. Well, this is where I swap my OHI, my oral hygiene instructions, with Grin instructions, because guess what? Grin has incorporated OHI into the platform. So in the Grin platform, you have a full library of videos and how-tos that, number one, Grin has created, but number two, you can upload so that you have your own template that is at the patient's fingertips. So instead of spending 10 minutes on OHI with the patient during a bonding visit, we just show the patient, hey, remember what we scanned you with Grin? Let's have you take your first scan. That's 34 seconds. Let's even say with instructions, that's a minute. Then show them in the app, you have all of these videos. We want you to go home and watch them. This is how you brush your teeth with braces. This is how you put on your aligners and how you take care of your limbs. It's all in the app already. So we're taking a 10-minute OHI, oral hygiene instruction, and taking that down to a 3, 4, 5-minute max Grin instruction and going over the platform. So again, I'm not disrupting my schedule in needing to onboard a patient. It's simple, it's easy, and it's layered right in because Grin provides so many of these tools. Now, we talked a little bit about bonding day tools and patient education. Also, all across treatment, we are constantly leveraging the AI, and our team, we call them Grin Care Specialists, to keep an eye not just on how treatment is going, but also hygiene, also giving patients hygiene reports, etc. Very important to us, very important to the practices, and we've got so many different ways how your practice can now become the shining star from an oral hygiene perspective for all of your, whether it's your referrals from your GPs and obviously the moms, because when we have practices that are getting a lot of white spot lesions and things like that, a lot of doctors don't realize it, but moms are talking on the moms group about things like that. So this becomes very, very important. Now, on bonding day also, we're working on integrations where your attachment template, your brackets template, all within the platform. We have Grin open chairside for every patient. And part of the reason is, so I've got my TOPS, right? TOPS is my PMS system open, and that's my scheduling, like I said, my paperwork. And then I've got Grin open because Grin is showing us exactly where the patient is up to in treatment. So my team knows before they go to the waiting room to pick a patient up and bring them to the chair, they've got Grin up. They're looking at that Grin scan, which could have been from a week ago. So they know exactly what's happening in the patient's mouth, and they know how to set up that chair, which again becomes really, really impactful from an efficiency perspective. I've mentioned Grin Care Specialists, so key to everything that's on the platform. The one thing I, as an orthodontist, don't want to do is take away clinical homework, we'll call it, and give you virtual homework, right? I don't want to take away clinical chair time, which is important, right? Let's reduce clinical chair time. Let's increase efficiencies. Well, every digital tool that you layer into your practice, if it's going to give you digital homework, then you're not actually getting efficiency. You're just trading one hassle for another. My goal is to reduce the hassle factors. And so when you onboard onto Grin, your team, you don't have to build a team now to take care of Grin. We've got that. We've got a human being that gets assigned to your practice that will actually be talking to your patients, right? How cool is that? So think of Grin, aside from these innovative software tools, as also being a virtual extension of your practice from an HR perspective. So again, when we talk about needing to reduce staff or not be as reliant on your internal staff and offboarding it, this is, again, a huge, tremendous area where Grin completely shines. And this kind of brings us to Copilot. So I talked a little bit about the AI and how the AI is backed by the human, which is our GCS, our Grin Care Specialist. So what you're seeing here, for example, is the AI immediately will flag things that need to be flagged, right? Bad hygiene, missing attachments, does the aligner fit, does the aligner not fit, are the teeth tracking or not? But that does not go to the patient, right? So for those of you that have used other systems, how many times do you come in on a Monday morning and the AI has told the patient not to go, and you're looking and you're like, no, you can go. And now the patient's like, wait a minute, the AI told me not to, you're telling me to. That becomes disruption. So this is going to immediately go to the GCS, the Grin Care Specialist, who will then actually, with the human eye, take a look, understanding how you like running your practice, and then determining what to tell the patient or not to tell the patient, right? So this part here is actually the AI. This part here is the human being, right? And this is Renee, and Renee runs it for my practice. All of my patients know Renee. They actually come in wanting to meet Renee, but Renee, this practice is in New Jersey. Renee is in Arkansas, right? But that's how close they get to Renee, and they feel like she is part of the practice because she is just a virtual part of the practice that I don't pay for. It's paid for by Grin, which is unbelievable, right? And so this is Renee talking to my patient, talking about hygiene, talking about how to brush better. Again, have a nice Memorial Day, right? This is not just a chatbot. This is a human. Renee has been invited to local barbecues in New Jersey, even though she lives in Arkansas. So just some real power of the system, right? So AI, very cool, very powerful, very important. But then the human is really dissecting that AI information and making sure to give the patient the right information. And it's a human talking to my human patient, which is the way it needs to be. We obviously have a whole bunch of other bells and whistles and morphs and things like that for the patients. I mean, the usual stuff. On today's webinar, we're not going to get into every single little detail. I kind of want to just highlight some things. And then, of course, Andrew and his team can go way deeper into this from that perspective. Now, I mentioned the AI, how powerful it is and what it does. Some of the things that I just want to focus on as an example is how do we leverage that AI? So just to understand for a second, our co-pilot is made up of what I call multiple different AI agents, essentially, right? In orthodontics, I call it AI assistants, but today, in the world of AI, those of you that are in touch with it, we're calling these things agentic, right? That these are agents, right? And so we, as a practice, will turn on different agents or different assistants as we're going through treatment. So if a patient's going into aligners, I'm turning on the aligner treatment tracking assistant, right? If the patient, if I think, actually, honestly, I think for every patient, I turn on the oral hygiene assistant. If this patient is going into elastics today, I turn on the elastic assistant. I tell the elastic assistant where the patient is wearing their elastics, where they're supposed to be wearing their elastics, and what we're trying to achieve, right? We're trying to go from a class 2 to a class 1. Great. Now the AI agent is keeping an eye every scan. Is this patient progressing to a class 1? Is this patient wearing their elastics? And the Grin Care Specialist will also then keep an eye on, is this patient wearing? And ask the patient, hey, how have your elastics been? You took your scan, but the elastics weren't in the scan. Are you wearing it? How many hours a day are you wearing it? This also untethers for us as a practice the ability to actually go to what we call appointments on demand. Like my patient goes into class 2 elastics, they're not getting a next appointment. They're in Grin. I got the AI and the human GCS following them. I don't want to pull them in just to yell at them about wearing their elastics better. And so the AI and the human are doing that virtually. And when the patient is approaching class 1, immediately, because of the elastic assistant, and here you see treatment goals assistant, as soon as class 1 is achieved, it will ping my scheduling coordinator to call the patient to make an appointment, right? How cool is that? So patient goes on demand, but we have things in place that as they're getting towards class 1, my scheduling coordinator gets pinged, makes the patient an appointment. Hey, you're at a point now we've seen over Grin where you're ready to come in for your next appointment. Let's get you in. That has become so efficient for the way we run our practice. It's been unbelievable. Now, one other extremely unbelievable tool that we've built into the system from an AI perspective is what we call treatment tracking. I know that a lot of the tools that are out there today are looking at things like, is a tray fitting with aligner therapy? In brackets and wire therapy, is a wire flat? Now, you and I know if a tray has a misfit on a lateral incisor, that's telling you that something is off. That is not giving you the right information that you need. Because half the time, if I have a gap in the tray on a lateral, it's not the lateral. It's the canine or the central, right? That canine is not fully derotated yet. That tray doesn't fit up all the way. You're going to see it immediately on the lateral, which is right next to the canine, not so much on the canine. And this is the kind of thing where you're getting information that's kind of important, but not important enough. What Grin does instead, what I've turned to the team to get to do for me is, I said to the team, look, we're getting a scan of the patient's mouth. We have STL files of where the patient is supposed to be up to at every stage of treatment. I want you to tell me where the teeth are versus where they're supposed to be. I don't care about the tray. I don't care about the wire. I care, is there movement? Is the movement correct? Is this tooth in the right place in 3 dimensions that it's supposed to be? So what you're seeing here as an example is green teeth and red teeth. And not only are you seeing the red teeth, but you're seeing where the teeth are supposed to be versus where they are today. And you can click on these little buttons on the bottom and actually see the metrics of how far the teeth are from where they're supposed to be. So it's not just about gap in the tray. It's about our teeth tracking on a tooth by tooth basis. Now, because we built the system this way, we can now leverage this for braces care too, as long as it's a digital setup. So if you have an STL from the beginning of treatment and from the end of treatment, which we do in every indirect bonding or digital bonding case, what we can now show you, not stage by stage because in braces there aren't stages, but now we can run treatment tracker on these cases and show you where within the treatment arc from beginning to end every tooth is. We can also show you velocity of tooth movement. So here you see this means that tooth is stopped. This means that tooth is still moving fast. This means that tooth is moving slow, right? So we can show you velocity of tooth movement. We can show you where the tooth is up to. So here what you're seeing is this is where this tooth started. This is where the treatment goal is. This is where that tooth is up to. Very, very cool. And information that we as orthodontists have never been collecting other than quickly visually in our brains are processing it. But from an actual metrics perspective, we're starting to see some really cool things, which is now going towards how I'm changing, altering clinical treatment based on what I'm learning here. So really cool tools within the system. So again, to me, this is AI done right, right? This is leveraging AI in the right way, still keeping a human in the loop to talk to our patients, but also the AI is now giving me more information than I've ever had before. Now, once we're doing these treatment tracking, you can start thinking about leveraging this for retention as well, right? Just keep the patient in retention on Grin. Let them scan, see if the teeth are still matching or not, which is what we can now do digitally as well. So just a lot, of detail into some of the depths of the AI and the things that we've been building out. Now, time is short. I just want to show you guys one little segment where I'm going to take this down to a practice level and a patient level, okay? So from a practice level, I was told long ago that if somebody's going to get on stage and talk to you about what something did for their practice, they need to show you. How often does somebody actually put up their data from their practice? That's exactly what I'm going to do today. So this is what my practice looked like before Grin. Okay, so this is, I think, 2020 or 2021 probably. This is before Grin. Your average practice in the United States. So we saw about 90 to 100 patients a day or so. So here you can see down on the bottom, 90 appointments on this day. We had 1 new patient column. This is where we're making our money, new patients in. Then we had about 5 patient columns for clinical appointments. Really 4 and an overflow essentially is what it was. A year after starting Grin, this is what our schedule looked like. Now, again, this is from my tops. You can't alter it, right? This is a medical record. I'm not altering anything. This is the reality. I just want to get it up here and show you. So before Grin, you saw 90, really my days were 90 to 100 or so patients a day, 5 clinical columns, 1 consult column. Post Grin, 3 clinical columns allowed me to run 2 consult columns. Now I'm bringing more patients in that I can make money off of. I've gone from 90 patients a day down to 65 patients a day. Okay, so this was right before Grin, a year after Grin. What about today? And so like I said, I put together this lecture for a conference that I did early July. So you'll notice this is the day, June 25th this year, that I just took a snapshot, right? And you'll notice it runs true to what I just showed you, right? 59 appointments over the course of the day. That's it. 2 new patient columns. Here we have 3.5 for clinical columns. And so we're still running about 60 patients a day. And I'm going to show you in a minute, our practice has gotten more and more and more profitable, but taking it down from 90 to 100 patients a day to 50 to 60 patients a day. And so here's where I showed you the schedule. Now let me show you my numbers. So this is back in 2021, and we were at about 1.3 million, right? And this was just one of my locations, and this is was a 3-day-a-week practice. We took this down to a 2-day-a-week practice. 2022, so there's a year after we started Grin. We took the day from 90 patients down to 60 patients. We went from 1.3 to 1.59, 1.6 essentially. 2025, now we're at 2.197, basically 2.2. So we've continuously grown the practice while reducing the amount of clinical appointments that we've seen. And again, these are numbers that I cannot fudge. I'm putting this up on the board to show you. These are snapshots taken directly from our tops. So I kind of showed that to you on a practice level now. Now I'm going to take it down to just 3 clinical cases, recent finishes before July, which is when I kind of finished this. And this is taking it to a patient level. So this is a patient. You'll notice the blue here. This patient came in as a virtual consult through Grin. That blue is the Grin Scope that I showed you. This patient lives in what we call Long Island City. So for those of you that know the New York area, this is Manhattan, okay? This is New Jersey. My practice is here. Long Island City is here. So this patient travels through the bridges and tunnels, through Manhattan, all the way up onto the Jersey side to see me. Why? Because she was able to find my website and click virtual consult. A scope came to her in the mail. She took a scan. I engaged with her over the platform virtually. I closed this case virtually. Then she came in to see us literally 2 times over treatment, and she has her nice results. So she was told originally 12 to 18 months of aligner therapy by her GP. We treated her with Clarity Aligner, Solventum, managed by Grin, I call it. Because again, when this patient goes virtual and they're sending in their remote monitoring over Grin, it's not even my practice. It's Renee, who's an extension of my practice, an employee of Grin that's managing her. This was a total of 7 months of treatment. She was told 12 to 18, and 2 visits in my practice. So you can see here, we've leveled and aligned her really, really nice arch forms and things like that. This isn't a clinical lecture necessarily, but you can see a really nice result in a relatively short amount of time. Just to take this down to a per patient, what we call monetary mechanics, right? In my practice, again, this is USD, $68.85, so about $7K for treatment, right? For aligner therapy, sub 12 months. Aligner cost for me was about $980. Visit, chair time, overhead. So the average overhead in the United States is $285 a chair time hour. So we took 2 visits now. That would have been a full hour, but doesn't even matter. Let's give it the overhead cost of $285. I'm still at $56.20 profitability, which gives me $2,800 in profitability every time I peek my mouth in to say hi to the patient. That's about it. Now again, but still good treatment. I'm not reducing the fact that, we're barely doing anything. What I'm trying to say is, we're obviously planning it the right way. We're learning the right things. We have eyes on this patient responsibly, keeping an eye on how treatment is going, making sure she's progressing. But this is what really untethering the patient from these monotonous, constant visits that we do because, it's always been done in orthodontics. It's not the future. It's not the way. We can still have responsible oversight for our patients, taking great care of them, even better care of them because we're more connected virtually, and actually scale our practices and be more profitable. Another patient, open bite. Open bite with aligners are tough, right? And are time consuming. So this patient was quoted 24 months of aligner therapy by the general dentist. I took her in and I talked to her about what are your wants and needs, right? Obviously we want to get a nice smile. Obviously we want to close that open bite, but do you really want to be in treatment for 2 years? I know you're saying you want aligners, but 2 years, really? What if I can give you a solution that not just hits your aesthetics, but also hits your timeline, right? And so what we did here is what we call a combo case. We did 3 months of Clarity Advanced Ceramic Brackets and then 4 months of aligners. So 7 months total, 4 visits for this one because we had brackets and wires and aligners, so she was coming in a little bit more frequently, managed by Grin. And let me just show you here. So here you can see the Grin scan shot with the Clarity brackets on. Here you can see the Grin scan shot with the aligners in. This is her final result. And literally, right? So 3 months fixed, 4 months aligners, 4 visits total in practice. Really, really nice result. Patient extremely happy. Now this one, the case fee was a little bit higher because this is 2 different appliance systems, so $78.85, and we're going to run it the same way. The brackets cost us, these are digitally bonded brackets, $500. We did in-house aligners here at $220, 4 visits at $285. We're still at over $1,500 of profitability per visit. One more case, so I showed you a full aligner case, I showed you a combo case. This is a full brackets and wire case. So this is a patient, class 3, anterior crossbite, quoted 24 months with aligners. We use Clarity Advanced Ceramic Brackets. So I said to him, I'm like, if I could do that in half the time, are you cool with clear braces? He said yes, right? And this is exactly what we did for him. So here you can see, and you can see, right, the original consult came in February 26th in 2024, right? So we do the months and days the reverse. So 2/26 is February 26th, 2024, which means that's when we did the consult. We bonded him up the month after because we got to plan the case, send it in, right, all of that. So basically March or April 2024 is where he started. This you can see is his final result. So from 3 or 4 2024 to about 3/17 2025, you can see we had canine class 3 to canine class 1, midline off, midline on, beautiful bite, and of course overjet. So 24 months of aligner therapy is what they told him. We did this in 12 months with brackets and wires, obviously managed by Grin, 4 visits total. Case fee $78.85. The brackets cost us $500, digitally bonded, 4 visits at $285. We're still at over $1,500 of profitability. So again, what I'm trying to show you guys is the ability to empty out our clinical chair time, but still on a practice level be more profitable. On a patient level, give patients more of what they're looking for with absolutely beautiful results and better oversight than you've had. But the oversight can be offshore to some extent from your practice, right? Our Grin Care Specialists are well trained and then learn the way you want to do things so that they're making sure that they are truly an extension of your practice, right? Now, I showed you 3 different cases. On our average case, we're still running over $1,000 of profitability per visit. So even your typical adolescent case with brackets and wires, we're running essentially, literally $1,000 of profitability per visit across all of our practices. Okay, we've got 7 minutes left. You know, I had a little bit more to show you on that perspective, but I want to definitely stop and actually give you guys time for Q&A and things like that. And so I'm going to pause for a second here. I really appreciate you guys' time, especially after a long day of seeing patients and work. Like I said, I'm always available. The best way to get in touch with me is adam@get-grin.com. You know, maybe I'll put it in the comments and things like that. But let's open it up for some questions.
Thank you, Adam. I think the audio should be fixed, but I've been told it was a little bit crackly at the start, so I apologize. So there's a couple of questions in relation to functional appliances. Do you use Grin for functional appliances?
Yeah, so I use Grin across the board in my practice from, like I said, from the moment they touch the practice all the way through phase 1s, observations, functional appliances, everything. And so, you know, we personally, in my area, we have had some issues with patients and compliance when it comes to functional. And it's interesting because for a while, my practice kind of went off of functional because of the compliance issue. And after we introduced Grin, we went back on. Because with Grin, it's kind of like Big Brother is watching you, and we're getting compliance up tremendously. So we haven't done a full study on yet. This is more anecdotally. But yes, absolutely, we're using Grin for functional as well.
Fantastic. Sorry, the other question that we had here in relation to the percentage of breakdown between braces and aligners. Are you doing more braces with Grin, or are you doing more clear aligners, or is every single orthodontic case going on to Grin for remote monitoring?
Yeah, so if you want to have efficiency within your practice, you don't want your practice to be fragmented, right? So I like, if I'm using a system, it's being used across my entire practice. You know, I didn't show you every bell and whistle on Grin, but as an example, because every single patient in my practice is on Grin, both braces, lingual, and aligners, if I ever need to communicate with every patient in my practice, I can do so. So I can click broadcast message, and I can segment my patient population or send to my full patient population anything I want. Now, where this becomes powerful, as an example, is last Mother's Day, we ran a special. We sent a broadcast message to every patient on Grin, which is every patient in the practice, saying, hey moms, have you been considering orthodontic treatment? We'd love to give you a smile touch-up for Mother's Day. Grab your kid's Grin Scope, take a scan of yourself, and Dr. Schulhof will do a virtual consult, and if you start treatment, it's $750 off of treatment. We actually turned around $83,000 conversion from that one broadcast message. So again, because everybody in the practice is on it, you're going to see efficiencies well beyond just monitoring, right? Now, across Grin, so outside of my practice, so my practice is about, I would say 65, probably 65-35 aligners versus braces, everybody on Grin. Across Grin, we actually have exactly the same. It's about, actually, it's not 65-35, it's 70-30 now, braces versus aligners. So you've got 70% of doctors using Grin, using them for brackets and wires, 30% for aligners, which is the standard really across most practices. So most Grin doctors have incorporated Grin across their practices.
Okay, one more question is in relation to retention. Are you offering a retention package with utilization of Grin, or do you just, what are you doing in relation to retention and observation?
Yeah, so Andrew, with the Grin Care Specialist in Australia, you guys can absolutely, talk to your doctors as far as what that retention package can look like, after you're monitoring a patient. In my practice, what we've done is essentially we are offering our patients, and this is going to sound a little bit crazy, $10 per month, right? So we turn it into what we call MRR, monthly recurring revenue. So $10 a month or $99 a year. So the patients just swipe $99 a year? Absolutely. They take a Grin scan every 3 months, okay? I have our team member just take a quick look at it. Hey, you're doing great. Great, fantastic. If they need a retainer, and I'm sure many of you have different types of programs, they get a discount on a new retainer, right? But this way, we are now, think about how many patients run through your practice on a year, and then year 2, and then year 3, and then year 4. Take even 30% of them and say you're going to get $100 a month from a year from every single one of these patients as they move forward. As they move from the East Coast in the United States to UCLA for college to the West Coast, they're still paying that $100, and they're still going to be a patient of ours and order aligners through our platform. So that really starts scaling up tremendously. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to run your own aligner program in your practice. We can definitely talk about them, but having an actual tool to do so, right? And many practices have done different aligner programs, but you weren't monitoring the aligners, right? You were just saying, oh, if you need an aligner because you have this aligner insurance, then therefore you're going to get a discount on aligners. But when you're offering them also the monitoring of that retention, you're giving them a lot more, something tactile, something, with a little bit more meat on the bone as you're offering them that service.
Absolutely. Well, it is right on 8:30 here, so 6:30 for you in New York. So we really do appreciate your time. One of the key things that we notice is having the fixed price. And one of my colleagues described it as the difference between catching an Uber and catching a taxi. And pretty much the majority of the people catch an Uber nowadays. And the reason why is we want to have a set fee in relation to our treatment. By having it with a taxi, you don't know. And so that's what happens when you have this remote monitoring option with other systems. You'll have a situation where you don't know what the fixed price is. So it can go for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, whatever period it is in relation to the actual treatment. You never know what it is. So what we've done here in Australia is we've actually just got a fixed price for up to 5 years of active monitoring. So what this allows you to do is to go through the 3 different phases. So the observation to the active to retention throughout the entire journey. And so it allows you to look at your business model and really sort of capitalize quite a significant amount with that flat pricing with dental monitoring. With Grin compared to dental monitoring. So with that, what it is, it starts off at a price of around $250, but that includes the actual Grin Scope as well. So there's no additional fees that are related to that compared to the competition, which is really quite beneficial for you as in the practice. So what you need to do to compensate it for your practice so it doesn't become another bill to the practice, you need to save one appointment. If you can save at least one appointment, you will cover the cost of Grin for that entire treatment of that patient. So it become a really good practice growing platform, but also a management platform and a whole range of different things for your practice. Obviously, everyone has registered, so I do have email addresses. So I'll send out an email to all of you just saying thank you. And if there's anything that you want from us in relation to today's lecture, you can respond back to me. But lastly, I just want to thank everyone for the time. I really do appreciate it. Adam, thank you so much for getting up at 5:30 in the morning. You sound like you've been up for a couple of hours, and the energy that you have is really fantastic. And do you know what it is? It just shows you the commitment and the excitement that you have of the product that you've built. And so we really do appreciate your time and effort today.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. It was a blast.